the third generation iPhone SE is a boring phone. There's no doubts about that. Just look at it. You could easily mistake it for the iPhone 6 that came out all the way back in 2014. But boring doesn't necessarily mean bad. And the third generation iPhone SE is by no means a bad phone. Apple still sells these phones new for £430. And for that price, I don't think it's great value. But on eBay, there are heaps of used third gen iPhone SEs available for around 170 quid. And for that price, it's an absolute steal. If you want a simple phone that's going to get 3+ years of software support with the benefits of the Apple ecosystem and really great performance, and you don't care about having the best display or even that great battery life, the third generation SE offers fantastic value and is very much worth £170. In this video, I'll give you a full overview of how the third generation iPhone SE holds up in 2025, so you can decide whether or not you want to pick one up for yourself. So let's start off with the best thing about this phone, which is the processor. The third gen SE is powered by the A15 processor, which is the same processor found in the iPhone 13 and is actually better than the processor found in the entry-level iPads that Apple are still selling today as well. The only thing that's really limiting this phone is the 4GB of RAM, meaning that it's not getting the Apple Intelligence features, and sometime in the future, it's probably going to struggle with multitasking and app switching. But for now, there's no signs of it being a slow phone. I don't think that anybody is going to have any performance issues with day-to-day tasks. Swiping through the operating system, opening apps, and multitasking through different apps all works absolutely fantastic. I'm genuinely struggling to think of many use cases where this phone doesn't excel. The only ones I can think of are certain games like the AAA games that were released for the iPhone 15 or onboard AI processing. Just for fun, here are some processor benchmarks so you can see how it compares to other iPhones. Evidently, it's really comparable to the iPhone 14, and it's not even that far behind the iPhone 15. And comparing it to some of the flagships of last year, it goes toe to toe. It's either only a teeny tad slower, or in some cases, slightly faster than the Android flagships that came out last year. Of course, this is just CPU benchmarks and not covering RAM or GPU performance, but it does show how much processing power you're getting for £170. And you're also future-proofing yourself for several years to come. I would say it's a safe bet to assume that this phone's going to get at least 3 more major iOS updates. So moving on to the camera, which is neither really fantastic or awful, it's just okay. It's a 12 megapixel single lens shooter. Even though most phones now come with multiple lenses, it doesn't really matter because it is one solid lens. But the camera hardware on the third generation iPhone SE, as far as I'm aware, is the exact same hardware found on the iPhone 8. And Apple are just hoping that that faster processor will do a better job at processing the images. As you can see here, the photos are decent. Low light photos are better than that on the iPhone 8, and HDR is better as well, but I still don't think it's as good as many Android phones for the same price. Where this phone does shine is video. iPhones are just really good at taking video, and this is no exception. Here are some shots taken on the third generation iPhone SE, where the value of this phone really starts to deteriorate, especially for heavier users, is going to be the battery life. It only has a 2000 milliamp hour battery, whereas a lot of entry-level Android phones for the same price will have double that battery capacity. So what that means is you'll probably be able to get about 3 hours at most of screen on time with this phone and still have a little bit of juice left at the end of the day. So this phone really does lend itself to lighter users, people who aren't going to be on it too much throughout the day, as the battery just isn't good enough and they'll constantly have to be charging it. To get the best battery performance and get the most out of this phone, I'd really recommend changing the battery, especially if the battery health is below 80%. Apple charge around £80 to do this, so it does add to the cost of buying a used SE or you can find certain third parties that will do it for nearer 40 or 50 pounds, or even you could do it yourself. Watch a couple of YouTube tutorials, and if you're feeling confident, I do think you might be able to do it yourself. So clearly the worst thing about this phone is the screen and design. Yes, it's a tried and tested design that's easy for anyone to pick up and immediately be comfortable using, and it's a pretty good size. But for the money and compared to the competition, you just no longer feel like you're getting a premium experience. It's a 4.7-inch LCD display that's 60 Hz, and yeah, it's decent enough. You can see it in daylight, but it's the same screen as the iPhone 6 and is very outdated by today's standards. For the same money, you can buy Android phones with 120 Hz high refresh rate OLED screens that are just worlds better than the 2022 iPhone SE. And this goes for the rest of the phone. It just looks outdated now. So to summarize, the iPhone SE does offer you really good performance for the money, and it's a cheap phone that I think is going to last many, many years, and it comes with all the standard benefits of the Apple ecosystem. So it's got wireless Apple CarPlay, AirDrop and iMessage, etc. But it does fall short when it comes to stuff like the screen, and also the cameras aren't necessarily best in class anymore, but it's still an all-round solid performer, and I think for 170 quid it's definitely worth picking up.